Thank you very much, John. And actually, the figure that I was quoting from this morning was 79 weeks, which I thought was an exaggeration. But when I see you leaving it, putting it down there in terms of the different stages and it being 70 plus, it certainly is a worrying aspect. But it's certainly an interesting perspective from your own situation as a practitioner. Our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, is Dr. Tom Woolley from Rachel Bevan Architects. Dr. Woolley was Professor of Architecture at Queen's Belfast and now works as a freelance environmental consultant for Rachel Bevan Architect. This morning he's here to talk about the growth in bio-based and environmentally friendly building materials on the market. So Tom, you're very welcome.
Yeah, it's working. Yeah, okay, thank you. Slight technical hitch. Anyway, thank you very much for inviting me today, and I'm going to try and whiz through a bit of an introduction to the idea of genuinely sustainable construction using bio-based, natural and sustainable materials. I'll finish off with a project that we're currently working on in Dublin. Everybody talks about sustainability, but unfortunately a great deal of that is greenwash. It's not really sustainable. So I want to talk about really sustainable things, and in a way we shouldn't have to remind people about the fact that we have a problem with global warming and CO2 emissions. And in order for construction to be sustainable, we need to adopt what I call low-impact building. We need to reduce the impact of buildings on the environment. And one of the main things we have to do is to reduce the use of petrochemical-based materials. This causes a lot of problems for the industry because people want to build in an energy-efficient way, and as a result, they are using more petrochemical-based materials, and that's something we have to move away from, and I'll try and show how that can be done realistically and practically. As a small architecture firm, we focus on doing sustainable construction, but we also do research and consultancy, and we work with other bigger firms to try and advise them on how to build in a more sustainable way. We've also published a number of books, this particular one on low-impact building, which describes a UK programme in which the UK government supported the use of bio-based materials in construction. This is an example of a project we've done recently. These are two houses in North Wales, built with wood fibre insulation and built to extremely low energy standard. It's now possible, losing a bit at the top of the slide here, but never mind. It's now possible to source environmentally friendly materials. I think a lot of people assume that it's difficult to get hold of them, they're not really available here, there are all sorts of difficulties. There are 101 excuses people use to not use sustainable and ecological materials, but increasingly we're able to source the kind of products that we want to specify in construction. And there are a whole range of extremely good, well-certified, well-proven insulation materials and products and systems of building that we can use. Just yesterday I was in Austria. I went to visit the Isolina sheet wool insulation factory. I was really impressed with them and with their products. And one of the big frustrations that we have is that we have a lot of sheep in Ireland. We've got a lot of wood and wood waste, and we could be making wood fibre products and sheet wool insulation here in Ireland, but we don't do that. We have to import these products from other countries such as Germany, Austria and Switzerland, because they have appreciated the value of these kind of products, and so we end up paying more for them sometimes because of the fact we're importing them. A lot of these products are certified by an organisation called Nature Plus. People are not aware here of Nature Plus certification, but this is a standard which has been established for 10 years throughout Europe, which provides certification for sustainable products. And in Austria, for instance, they have something called the Baubook. If buildings are built using materials that are included in the Baubook, that are ecological and Nature Plus certified, then they get special rates from the bank and they get government subsidies. So there is an actual support for these kinds of products. We're organising a meeting shortly to set up a Nature Plus contact point in Ireland, and initially we're starting out with the people who are selling Nature Plus certified products here, but if anybody has a specific interest in this, then please do talk to me about getting involved. A key aspect of Nature Plus certification is that the materials that are used must be good for the indoor environment. In other words, they must not have a negative effect on people's health. I don't have time to talk about this in detail. I'm currently writing a book about healthy buildings and building materials. It's a very complex subject, so I just have to kind of draw your attention to it. One of the things that we do as architects is we carry out indoor air quality testing. We now have a kit that is actually quite affordable to do this, and we're able to go into buildings and discover what the indoor air quality is like. It's a pretty scary thing to do. We've recently done some tests on new-built social housing in Northern Ireland, and the levels of toxic chemicals being emitted by these buildings is way over safety limits. And this is a very worrying thing, that this is actually going on with current conventional construction. It's the test kit that we use. The World Health Organization is increasingly publishing information about this, and recently the EU has issued new standards, new regulations for companies to actually declare formaldehydes and styrenes within their products. This came into force on April the 1st, and any construction products which use formaldehyde and styrenes must have a declaration of that on their packaging and advertising literature and so on. I've seen very little evidence of the industry complying with this regulation. That means it's very hard to find out when these products actually contain these toxic substances. Polyurethane is a particularly popular material that's used for insulating buildings. It's made from isocyanates. Isocyanates are made from phosgene, which is the nerve gas that was used in the First World War. So we're talking about very toxic substances that get used in buildings. Another major problem that we're facing now is despite increased standards in building and better insulated buildings, we are also seeing an increase in dampness and mold growth. This is a very, very serious issue, and it's occurring particularly in buildings in England, where there's been a major program of retrofitting existing housing. The mold growth has increased. This is something that we have been trying to draw attention to, and there's a little bit of interest, gets into the popular press, but people are not really aware of the kind of health problems that exist in building. And many of the retrofit solutions that are being employed in housing are, in our view, inappropriate and can lead to serious health problems, and there's quite a lot of evidence of this. There's a tendency to think that what we have to do is seal up our buildings with plastic and petrochemical-based insulations. This is not good for people's health. Fuel poverty is another major issue. Despite all the sort of changes in society, fuel poverty continues to become a major problem, and it's one that we have to tackle. And we have to tackle fuel poverty while we're also thinking about healthy buildings. I'll skip this because I'm short of time. One of the main things that we need to consider is using what are called hygroscopic materials and breathable materials. In other words, when we renovate buildings or we build new buildings, we should use materials which do not seal everything up in plastic, but instead allow buildings to breathe and allow the materials to actually manage and regulate humidity in buildings. And this is a very, very different approach to building physics than that which has been conventional. And it raises a whole number of challenges to the building regulations. Building regulations tend to militate against using innovative and ecological materials, and that's really worrying because we need to be using more of these products, not less. There is some guidance to sustainable forms of construction. This is one project that was done recently, which was a cross-border initiative by something called the Smart Eco Hub. We published a guide to sustainable construction. We've also written a guidance document on sustainable construction methods, which incorporates many of the ideas I've been talking about. And that was published by the Ministerial Advisory Group in Northern Ireland, having done the rounds of a whole lot of government departments. And I was actually surprised how positive they were about many of the innovative ideas in this document. It's also part of the Northern Ireland Carbon Reduction Plan. Again, I'll skip stuff because we're short of time. We also produced a whole series of training modules through a European-funded research project that involved partners in both the Irish Republic and Northern Ireland, and these training modules are available if people want to learn more about genuinely sustainable forms of construction. The one area of work that I've been particularly associated with is the development of hempcrete. Hempcrete, hemp and lime mixed together provides an amazing building construction method. It's very innovative, very low insulation, low carbon. It's hygroscopic, it manages moisture, it's breathable, it does a whole range of things, and it's become very widely used in the UK. We've built a house in our own garden, which is we let as a holiday cottage, and it was also listed by the Guardian newspaper as one of the top 10 eco-houses in the UK. We had a great deal of support from the local authority in building this, and there's a YouTube film of it. Hempcrete construction has been adopted by a number of housing associations. This is a housing project in County Antrim in Northern Ireland. It's built with hempcrete. I do workshops all over the world teaching people about this form of construction. This is one we did in Canada, Holland, Belgium, South Africa, all over the world. Hemp is a fantastic crop also for farmers. It's very beneficial as part of the agricultural economy. But unfortunately in Ireland there are no processing facilities. You need a processing factory for hemp, so we have to import our hemp from England. Marks and Spencers have used hempcrete in this highly energy efficient superstore outside Chester. They are surprised that this building is performing 40% better than was predicted in terms of its thermal performance. And a lot of the food and wine storage companies in the UK are using hempcrete as the main form of walling for their buildings, because this material is able to maintain a steady temperature of 14 degrees in a building without any heating or cooling. The Science Museum in Roarton near Swindon have built a special building which is to house artifacts that have to be, historical artifacts that have to be kept in perfect conditions, and they used hempcrete as the walling system for this building because they need to keep these products in good condition. There are quite a number of educational buildings using hempcrete. This is Bradford University. This is the WISE building at Centre for Alternative Technology. And again, I'm really trying to help the organisers here catch up with time, so I won't go into detail on this, but I'm very happy to talk about it if you want to know more. Hempcrete has been approved and tested by a number of bodies, and there's a lot of scientific information explaining its performance and how it's able to even out and moderate temperatures and humidity in buildings. We've been working on a project for Dublin City Council and the Rediscovery project here that is going to convert the old boiler house in Ballymun. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the big chimney there as a landmark. This project is funded under the EU LIFE programme, and the intention is to really demonstrate low resource consumption, low impact methods of building and construction. And people will be able to visit this building and it be an educational tool, as well as being a fantastic project where they recycle all sorts of products and materials. This is a drawing by ABK, the architects who've been working on the project, and this building will incorporate, hopefully, quite a few of the low impact products and materials that I've just been talking about. So it's a bit of a fast whiz through, but I hope I've given you some sense of how it's possible to incorporate environmentally friendly and low impact materials in mainstream construction. And I'm happy to talk to anybody or answer any questions, if not now, outside. So thank you very much.